So let me introduce Anne-Marie Lind, who will tell you 5 minutes about her story, and then we'll go back and get into more depth. Anne-Marie?
Hi, everybody. Well, they say that people have...
Microphone.
Oh, how do we...
Just put it in front of you.
Hi. It's said that people generally have 3 to 5 major careers in their life, and it's not on? Okay. Okay. It's said that people usually have 3 to 5 major careers in their life, and that's certainly true for me. I've had 3 major careers thus far. My first career was in human services. My background is in psychology and special education. So when I got out of my undergraduate program with my BA in psychology, I was looking for what to do. And I was very interested in developmental disabilities. And I spent the next 10 years working in that field, helping people who were living in state schools try to transition out into the community to find employment, residences, and to be integrated into the community. And that was a great job. I loved it. I did it for 10 years. The only problem was that the better I got at it, the more stressful it became. And the people who I was serving became the people with the most serious problems, and I would take the work home and worry about them. There were people who had injury, self-injurious behaviors and behaviors that were destructive to others. So when I finished up my doctorate in the area, I had the opportunity to switch into research, and then I began my second career. So I went from human services to an area called human factors. And there I studied the interaction between people, the jobs that they do, and the tools that they use. And the whole purpose is for safety and effectiveness in jobs. So I made that transition from human services into industry, and I did research in transportation safety. It was a great job. I did that for the next 25 years in a couple of different places. And I got to study pilots, air traffic controllers, the equipment that they use, the stressful situations that they have, and the best way to create procedures and equipment to make their jobs safe. I even got to do work with the Coast Guard, which was the most fun. I went with Coast Guard small boat crews on search and rescue missions and studied their fatigue and the stresses in their lives and came up with a work schedule that was more safety conscious, so they wouldn't be exhausted and having accidents on the job. So I did this work for 25 years, and I thought I would do it pretty much for the rest of my life because I loved it. And I thought, oh, I'll go from full-time to part-time, and maybe I'll consult. Well, as John Lennon says, life is what happens while we're making other plans. Things changed. Where I was working, the people who had hired me and admired my work, they moved on. They became older, they retired. The new people had different directions, different goals. I changed too. I had a son who was facing going into college, deciding on a college. I needed to spend more time with him. And I really wanted to have more time with my family. And I didn't want to travel so much. The job involved a lot of traveling. So I decided, okay, I've got all these degrees, this experience, I've got publications like crazy. I can go out and get a job consulting. Well, not so easy. The economy turned sour, and the other thing was, as I would go out on interviews, no one said, oh, you're too old, oh, you're too experienced. They said I was seasoned. Great word, seasoned. I felt like they meant more toward the end of rotting rather than just seasoned. So they would ask me, can you recommend anybody coming out of a graduate program? They wanted young people that they could mold and who were inexpensive. So, I mean, they weren't claiming age discrimination, but it was pretty clear. And also the economic times. They didn't want to pay the salary that someone with my experience would be expected to have. And you can't really turn around and say, that's okay, I'll take less, I need the job. Because then they get suspicious of somebody. Why would she take less? Well, she can't be very good. So then I had a period of deciding, now what am I going to do next? I was at home, it was winter, it was cold, I thought, well, what can I do? And, my friends were telling me, oh, you should go and you could run an agency, you could do this, you could do that. Well, no, you can't just turn around and do that. So I had heard a lot about the graying of the baby boomers, of which I am one, and I started looking into gerontology. One day I was looking in the paper, and
Excuse me, Anne-Marie, we're going to get to how you got there.
Oh,
So
okay.
let's just tell them what
I
you're
could
doing
stop
right
there.
now, and then we're going to move on, do introductions, and then we'll come back to hear the process.
Okay. So now I'm working at Minuteman Senior Services with Joan, and I'm doing counseling and information and referral with elders and their families to give them services so they can age in place in their own home.
Great. All right.
Okay, I did what worked for me in the past. Any job that I ever got was a combination of getting experience and getting education. So one day I saw an ad on Craigslist for the Commonwealth Corps position, and that it was at Minuteman, and I thought, well, this would be a great way to learn about elder services. So I became a volunteer at Minuteman, and that had a small stipend in the position, and it was a 10-month commitment. So I thought, okay, I could commit that much time to it, see how I like it, and find the right place within elder services where I'd like to go on in the future. Then the other piece was getting some education, and interestingly enough, I found LaSalle College. I live in Newton, and this was very convenient, and they have a great program in elder care administration. So during about a 10-month period, I did my volunteer work, and I completed a certificate in elder care, a graduate certificate. So that was pretty much the process, and then fortunately, there was a job opening at Minuteman, and I was able to step into that because they knew me already, they knew what I could do, I knew them, and I knew that was the place that I wanted to be. So I guess what I did was I looked at my skill set. I had good friends and family who said, stop talking about what you can't do and think about what you can do. And I kind of went back to thinking of what did I like best, and it was human services and wanting to help people. And there was also the financial shock too. So I kind of looked at what my assets were and what was going to be realistic. And I guess the biggest help in all that was my family and my friends, and just re-examining my skill set and trying to move forward. But it is a shock, that semicolon, that, what is next? When you don't know, it's very scary, but you really need to get out there, come to things like this. The Jewish Vocational Services has interesting resources, and also discover what's next, and all of those things help me. Something that was useful to me was I found myself embracing simple abundance. It's the idea that we don't need all the material things that we think we need. And when I had some time at home not knowing what I was going to do, I decided to declutter my environment. And I looked at my possessions, all my books, everything I had in the basement, whatever. And I just said to myself, is it beautiful? Is it useful? Is it sentimental? And if it was none of those things, I got rid of it. And I think that helped to declutter my mind too, and make my goals clearer. And we can really do without a lot of things that we think we can't live without as far as material things. And then family just becomes so much more important to us. And I think that was, I always knew that, but it was a big discovery in the point that I was in my life.
I think, midlife for many of us, I hate to think of myself as a senior, so I'm calling it late midlife, is a time when many of us reassess, what are our priorities? How do we declutter our lives? Where are we going next? What do we want to do? Whether there's a personal health crisis, a caregiving crisis, a loss of job, a desire to do something different, it is a time normally of reassessment.